My name is Della Ingram, and I am 32 years old. 3 days before my wedding, my father called. It was a Tuesday evening. I was in my workshop trimming roses for the centerpieces, soil under my nails, a playlist on low, the smell of cut stems and October air filling the room. When the caller ID lit up, Dad. I picked up with my elbow because my hands were wet. He said 6 words. I'm not walking you down the aisle. I set the pruning shears on the counter, wiped my hands on my jeans, said nothing for about 5 seconds, which doesn't sound like a long time until you are the one doing the counting. Vanessa says it would upset her, he said. Vanessa. My sister. 3 years older, married, 2 kids, and apparently still the gravitational center of every decision my parents made, including mine. Your sister is going through a rough time, Della. Her marriage, you know? I did know, but this was my wedding, not hers. 10 minutes later, my mother called to finish the job. Go solo. Stop making drama. Lots of modern brides walk alone. She said it like she was reading from a pamphlet. 48 hours later, 200 people would turn around when the barn doors opened, and the man holding my arm would not be my father. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I grew up in Millbrook, Connecticut. White clapboard houses, leaf blowers on Saturdays, the kind of town where everyone knows your mailbox, but not your middle name. My sister Vanessa was the bright one. Straight A's, debate team captain, piano recitals where my parents sat front row with the camera. My dad introduced her at neighborhood cookouts the same way every time. This is Vanessa. She's gonna be a lawyer. He said it like it had already happened. I was the one who came home with dirt on my knees. When I was 14, I built a greenhouse in the backyard. Scrap wood from a neighbor's renovation, plastic sheeting from the hardware store, a hinge pulled off an old cabinet. It stood 7 feet tall, and it was not pretty, but it grew tomatoes the size of my fist by August. That same year, my school science fair fell on the same Saturday as Vanessa's regional spelling bee. I entered my greenhouse tomatoes, heirloom seeds, controlled soil pH, a growth journal with daily photos. I won first place, blue ribbon pinned to my poster board before the judges even finished their rounds. My dad walked in 40 minutes late. The judges were already stacking chairs. Sorry, kiddo, Vanessa's event ran long. He glanced at the ribbon, nodded, said, "Good job," the way you say it to a stranger's kid at a checkout line. Then he checked his phone. That greenhouse stayed in the backyard for 9 years. I repaired the hinge twice, replaced the sheeting once. My mom called it an eyesore. My dad called it nothing. He never mentioned it again. But it kept growing tomatoes every summer, whether anyone noticed or not. My high school graduation was on a Thursday in June. That same week, Vanessa received her acceptance letter to Columbia's MBA program. My parents decided to combine the celebrations into one dinner at a downtown restaurant. 3 speeches were given. All 3 were about Vanessa. My dad raised his glass to our Columbia girl. My mom wiped her eyes and said she always knew. Vanessa thanked them for believing in her. I ate my pasta and clapped in the right places. No one mentioned my diploma. I had graduated with a 3.7 GPA and an acceptance to the University of Connecticut's horticulture program, a program I had applied to on my own, paid the application fee with money I'd earned mowing and weeding neighbors' lawns since sophomore year. When I told my mom about the horticulture degree, she set her coffee mug down and looked at me like I had said something in another language. That's not a real career, Della. 5 words. She said them once to my face and apparently many more times behind my back. Our neighbor Ruth Calloway, my grandmother Eleanor's closest friend, told me years later she had overheard my mother on the phone with her sister. Della is studying gardening. I don't even know what to tell people.
Vanessa's MBA tuition was paid in full by my parents. $22,000 a year. I know the number because my mother mentioned it at Thanksgiving, like a public service announcement. My tuition, I paid myself. Landscaping in the summers, greenhouse work on campus during the school year, student loans for the rest. Nobody announced my balance at the dinner table. Vanessa married Preston Hale 3 years after Columbia. Investment banking, charcoal suit at the rehearsal dinner, cufflinks that cost more than my truck payment. My parents glowed at the wedding, like they had personally arranged the stock market. Then the grandchildren came. Lily, now 5, and Owen, now 3. My dad retired the same year Owen was born, and those 2 kids became the center of his universe. He drove to Vanessa's house 3 times a week, built Lily a swing set, read Owen the same train book 47 times because Owen screamed if he stopped. Vanessa noticed. She noticed the way you notice a lever you can pull. The first time she used the kids, it was over Christmas seating. Vanessa wanted the head of the table. My dad gave it to her. The second time was about a family photo. Vanessa wanted it retaken without me in the background. My dad asked me to step aside. The third time, I heard it myself, through a speakerphone my dad didn't realize was loud enough to reach the kitchen. If you walk her, I won't bring the kids to Christmas.
My dad paused. I could hear his breathing through the phone. Then Vanessa's voice, calm and practiced. I mean it, Dad. It's too much for me right now. You know what I'm going through. Okay, Nessa. Okay. My mom walked into the kitchen 30 seconds later and saw my face. She knew I had heard. Her response was not an apology. She's their mother, Richard. Don't push her. That was the hierarchy. Vanessa, then the grandchildren, then my parents' comfort, then somewhere below the property taxes. Me. I met Marcus Delaney on a Tuesday in April, 3 years ago. I was planting a rain garden for a county drainage project along Route 12. He was the structural engineer overseeing a bridge 60 yards upstream. We both showed up at 6:30 in the morning. We both drank black coffee from thermoses. He saw me hauling a bare root system out of my truck bed and walked over without being asked. Need a hand? I've got it. I know, but my coffee's done and I'm bored. That was the first sentence Marcus ever said to me that wasn't about drainage grades. Our first date was a nursery tour and then tacos from a food truck in the parking lot. He had dirt on his boots. I had dirt on mine. It was the most natural evening of my life. He introduced me to his dad 2 weeks later. Frank Delaney, 63, retired carpenter. Hands like leather gloves someone left in the sun too long. He lived alone in the same house he had built with Marcus's mother, who had passed away from pancreatic cancer 8 years earlier. There was a workshop in the back, with sawdust on every surface and a radio permanently tuned to a classic rock station that I'm fairly certain he never turned off. Frank called me kiddo by week 3. By month 2, he had built me a bookshelf for my workshop. White oak, sanded smooth, dovetailed joints. He carved my initials on the inside of the left panel. D.I. Small enough you'd miss them unless you knew where to look. I run my fingers over those letters every morning when I open the shop. You've got dirt under your nails, he said the first time he visited my greenhouse. Good. Means you built something today. Nobody in my family had ever said that to me. Marcus proposed in the botanical garden I had designed for the Millbrook Public Library. It was an October evening, and the Japanese maples were turning that deep burgundy that makes people slow their cars. He got down on one knee next to the stone bench I had set into the path 2 summers earlier. I said yes before he finished the question. That night, I called my parents. My dad picked up on the 4th ring. I told him. There was silence for about 3 seconds. Then, congratulations. Not, I'm happy for you. Not, tell me everything. Just the word you say when a coworker announces their promotion. My mom took the phone. Is he from a good family? She didn't ask if I was happy. She didn't ask about the ring or the garden or the evening. She asked about his family like she might ask about his credit score. He is, I said. His dad is a carpenter. Silence again. The kind where someone is choosing not to say what they are thinking.
I sent the wedding invitation by hand. I designed it myself. Botanical illustrations along the border, pressed fern on the inside flap. I drove it to their house and left it in the mailbox because I didn't want to watch them open it. I also asked my dad to walk me down the aisle. He said yes quickly, almost reflexively, like someone agreeing to hold a door. Marcus said what he always says when I give my parents a chance they haven't earned. He put his hand on my knee and looked at me with those steady brown eyes. You know who they are, Dar. I know, but I want to give them one more chance. He nodded. He never tells me what to do with my family. He just makes sure I have somewhere soft to land afterward. The call came on a Tuesday evening, 3 days before the wedding. I was trimming the last of 14 rose arrangements in the workshop, the radio playing something with a fiddle, when the phone lit up on the workbench. Dad. Della, I need to tell you something. His voice was the one he used when delivering bad news to a client. Steady but detached, professional avoidance. I'm not going to walk you down the aisle. The pruning shears were still in my other hand. I set them down slowly, the way you set something down when you're not sure you can hold it without breaking it. Vanessa says it would upset her. Dad, Vanessa is not getting married. I am. She says seeing me give you away would be too painful. Her marriage is going through a rough patch. So my wedding day is about her feelings? Silence. Long. I could hear the television in his den, some game show. I'm sorry, Della. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I asked him one question, the only one that mattered. Did Vanessa threaten you with the kids again? More silence. Then his voice dropped lower, like someone might hear. She said if I walked you, she wouldn't bring Lily and Owen to Christmas. And there it was. The lever. The same lever she had been pulling for years, and he had been folding to every single time. His grandchildren, traded for his daughter's wedding day. And he had chosen the trade without blinking. Okay, Dad. Della, please understand. Okay. I hung up, set the phone on the workbench, picked up the shears, finished the 14th arrangement. My hands did not shake. I wanted them to. Shaking would have meant I was surprised. I was not surprised. I was just finally done pretending I might be. My mom called 10 minutes later, right on schedule. Donna Ingram does not leave loose ends. Your father told you. Yes. Don't make this bigger than it is. Go solo. Lots of modern brides walk alone. It's actually quite empowering if you think about it. She said empowering the way someone says organic when they don't buy organic. Mom, I asked Dad a year ago. He said yes. Things change. Your sister is hurting, and I'm not. You have Marcus, she said. Vanessa has no one right now. The math of it was so perfectly Donna. Vanessa's pain outweighed mine not because it was larger, but because it was hers. Stop making drama, Della. This is not the hill. I hung up.
walked to the porch, and sat on the top step. The October air was cold enough to see my breath.
I stared at the garden I had planted when I moved into this house 4 years earlier. Hydrangeas along the fence, lavender by the walkway, a dogwood I had put in the first spring that was now taller than me. Marcus found me 20 minutes later. No tears, just sitting, holding the phone like it was something I wasn't sure I wanted to keep. He sat down beside me, didn't ask what happened, didn't say I told you so, just put his arm around my shoulder and waited. After a while, I walked through the workshop, stopped at Frank's oak bookshelf, traced the carved letters with my fingertip. D.I. Then went to bed. Wednesday morning, 2 days before the wedding, Marcus made scrambled eggs with chives from the windowsill pot he keeps alive for me, because I somehow managed to overwater indoor plants while running a professional landscaping business. He set the plate down, sat across from me, waited. My dad isn't walking me. I heard you on the phone. He poured coffee. What do you want to do? Not, I'll fix this. Not, let me call them. Just, what do you want to do? That is Marcus. He doesn't rescue. He stands next to you and hands you the thing you need. I don't want to walk alone. Then you won't. He took a sip, set the mug down, looked at me with the calm focus of a man already 3 steps ahead. Dad's been practicing his tie knot since the engagement. I watched him YouTube it twice last Sunday. I smiled. First one in 12 hours. I can't ask Frank to do that. It's too much. Dar, that man built you a bookshelf he didn't have to build. He drives 40 minutes to your shop on Saturdays to fix hinges you didn't ask him to fix. He set a place for you at Sunday dinner 2 months after we started dating, and has never removed it. I stared at my eggs. He's been waiting, Marcus said. He just didn't want to overstep. The thought cracked something open in my chest. Not pain, but something warmer. The realization that the person I needed had been there for 3 years, sanding wood in his garage, calling me kiddo, showing up for every single thing my own father had skipped. Okay, I said. I'll ask him today. My best friend and maid of honor, Joanna, called an hour later. She had run into Vanessa at a salon in town that morning. Same colorist, apparently. Small towns have long arms. Your sister was there, Joanna said, and she was not subtle. What did she say? She was telling the colorist about your wedding, how stressful it all is. She said, and I'm quoting, Della always gets the attention now. Ever since she started that garden business, it's like the rest of us don't exist. I almost dropped the phone. Della always gets the attention. Me, the one who won a science fair to an empty chair, the one whose graduation dinner became a Columbia acceptance party, the one whose career was publicly labeled not real by her own mother. She also said, Joanna continued, her voice softer now, that your little garden business isn't even real work. There it was, the same sentence. Donna's words in Vanessa's mouth, passed down like a family recipe nobody asked for. She's not upset about the wedding, Della. She's jealous. You have Marcus. You have your business. You have a life that doesn't need her to validate it, and she can't stand it. I sat with that for a minute. Joanna is right about most things, and she was right about this. Vanessa didn't want my dad to walk me because it would hurt her. She wanted him to stay home because my happiness was something she couldn't control, and controlling the aisle walk was the closest she could get. I should tell you about Thanksgiving. Last November, Vanessa hosted. Preston sat at the head of the table in a shirt that probably cost what I charge for a full garden install. He checked his phone 11 times during the meal. I counted, because I was seated directly across from him and there was nothing else to look at while my mom talked about Vanessa's kitchen renovation. Vanessa was loud that night. Not her normal loud.
The loud where you're trying to fill a room so nobody hears the silence underneath. She laughed at things that weren't funny, refilled glasses that were still half full, touched Preston's arm twice, and he didn't react either time. Then Lily said it. She was 5, with mashed potatoes on her chin, and she said it the way 5-year-olds say everything, clearly and without knowing what it means. Why does Daddy sleep in the office? The table went quiet.
They shook when she poured the wine. A small tremor. 2 seconds. Then she straightened up, smiled, and passed the cranberry sauce, like nothing had happened. I understood something that night. Vanessa's marriage wasn't going through a rough patch. It was going through the floor. And instead of dealing with it, she was rearranging the furniture on top of the cracks. My wedding was just the latest piece of furniture she needed to move. Wednesday morning, 2 days before the wedding, I drove to Frank's house. He lives on a dead-end road off Route 9 in a small town called Chester. Brown shingled, single-story, with a porch he rebuilt in 2019, and a garage that smells like linseed oil and cedar. The radio in his workshop plays classic rock at a volume that suggests he believes Led Zeppelin should be a background presence in all human activities. He was sanding a rocking chair when I pulled in. Teak. Beautiful grain. He was in his work apron, the one with sawdust permanently embedded in the fabric like a second texture. I stood at the garage door for a full 10 seconds before he looked up. "Hey, kiddo." He blew dust off the armrest. "Coffee's on inside." Frank. He must have heard something in my voice, because he set the sandpaper down immediately, turned to face me, wiped his hands on the apron. My dad backed out of walking me down the aisle. He didn't say I'm sorry. He didn't ask why. He didn't shake his head or offer an opinion about my father or my family or the situation. He just looked at me with those steady gray eyes, the same eyes Marcus has, and said 5 words. "When do you need me?" That is the sentence. That is the whole thing. No hesitation, no "are you sure?" No "let me think about it." The man was sanding a rocking chair, and the next breath he took was offering to walk me into my future, like it was already on his calendar. Saturday, 1 o'clock. I'll be there at noon. He picked up the sandpaper, started sanding again, then quieter. "Kiddo, I've been waiting for someone to ask." I cried in the car on the way home. First time all week. The next 48 hours moved like a current. Joanna handled logistics with the calm efficiency of someone who has planned 3 baby showers and once organized a surprise birthday party during a blizzard. She updated the seating chart. The front row center aisle seat, the one my dad was supposed to fill, was relabeled Frank Delaney. Marcus took his dad's suit shopping Thursday after work. Frank had a sport coat from 2011 that he swore still fit. Marcus sent me a photo from the fitting room. Frank in a new charcoal suit, looking simultaneously proud and uncomfortable, his rough hands sticking out of the pressed cuffs like they didn't belong to the same outfit. Marcus texted underneath. He asked me 3 times if the tie was straight. I wrote my vows that evening in the workshop. The oak bookshelf to my left, a cutting board Frank had started for our wedding gift on the bench to my right, one he thought I didn't know about. I wrote by hand on the back of a landscape sketch, crossed out lines, rewrote them, settled on something simple. My parents didn't call Wednesday, didn't call Thursday, didn't text. I checked my phone twice Thursday night and then put it in the kitchen drawer. Marcus noticed. He didn't say anything. He just made tea and left a mug on my nightstand. Thursday afternoon, I was reorganizing the centerpieces in the workshop when there was a knock at the front door. Ruth Calloway, 68 years old, silver hair always pulled back. She had lived 3 houses down from my parents for decades, and had been my grandmother Eleanor's closest friend for 40 years. When Eleanor passed 11 years ago, Ruth was the one who sat with her at the end. She stood on my porch holding a yellowed envelope. "Your grandmother asked me to give you this," she said. "She told me the week before she passed, hold it until Della is getting married." Ruth's eyes were damp. I've been carrying it for 11 years. I was beginning to think it would outlast me. The envelope was soft at the edges. My grandmother's handwriting on the front, just my name, Della. I opened it at the kitchen table. Ruth sat across from me and did not speak. The letter was short, 12 sentences. Eleanor had always been efficient with words. "Della, when you read this, you are about to walk into the most important room of your life. I wish I could be there. I wish I could tell your mother to sit down and let you shine. I wish I could tell your father to look up from whatever is distracting him and see you. But I know how that family walks. So let me say what they will not. You have always been the one who builds. From that greenhouse to whatever you are building now, you make things grow where nothing was. Don't wait for them to see it. The people who show up are your real family. I love you. Build something beautiful." I read it 3 times, folded it carefully, and placed it in the clutch bag I would carry on Saturday. Thursday night passed without a call. Friday, the same. No text, no voicemail, no last-minute change of heart from my father or my mother. Friday evening was the rehearsal dinner. Frank drove 40 minutes from Chester. He arrived 20 minutes early and helped the caterer move tables because he saw them struggling and could not watch someone carry a folding table incorrectly. 30 guests, all from Marcus's side, plus my college roommate Alexandra, 2 women from the greenhouse workshop group I run on Saturday mornings, Ruth, Joanna, and nobody from my family. The barn venue looked beautiful. Open sides, string lights, wildflower arrangements I had designed and grown myself, lavender and Queen Anne's lace, and late-season dahlias in copper vases I found at an estate sale. Frank stood up for the toast. He held his glass the way he holds a chisel, firmly, like he means it. I'm not a man of many words. Ask Marcus, he'll confirm. Light laughter. But I'll say this. 3 years ago, a woman showed up at my son's job site and hauled a root ball out of a truck like it owed her money. I liked her immediately. He paused, looked at me. I never got a daughter. God just made me wait a little longer. The room went quiet. Joanna pressed a napkin to her eyes. Marcus put his hand on my knee under the table. Frank raised his glass. To Della, who makes things grow. I looked at his wrist. Sawdust, just a trace, caught in the fold of his cuff. He had come straight from the workshop. He always came straight from the workshop. That same Friday evening, 40 minutes south, my father sat in his garage. I didn't know this at the time. Joanna told me weeks later, through a chain of contacts I'll never fully understand. He sat on a folding chair, looking at the wall. There was a photo on the pegboard. Me, at 12 years old, holding a tomato from the greenhouse, grinning like I had invented sunlight. He had hung it years ago and never taken it down, even after my mom made him dismantle the greenhouse. It's an eyesore, Richard. My mom came out to the garage at 9. Are we going tomorrow? Richard looked at her. I think we should. Fine, but we sit in the back. I'm not letting Della turn this into some kind of statement. Richard nodded. He opened his phone, typed a message to me. I'm proud of you, Della. He stared at the screen for a long time, read it back, then deleted every word, locked the phone, and went inside. I
I didn't know about the deleted message until much later. But I think about it sometimes. Not with sadness, more with a kind of tired understanding. My father was not a cruel man.
He did not reply. 11 minutes later, Joanna forwarded me a screenshot. Vanessa had texted her, "Do you know who's walking Della tomorrow? She won't answer me." Joanna's response was a single period. Nothing else. I loved her for that. Vanessa called my dad next, because Richard then texted Marcus, not me, Marcus, at 10:15. Vanessa is upset. She thinks Della is bringing someone to embarrass us. Maybe we should not go. Marcus showed me the message and said nothing for a moment. Then, "Your dad just asked if we're trying to embarrass them at your own wedding." I took a breath, held it, let it go. Saturday. I woke at 5:15. The house was dark. Marcus had slept at Frank's. Tradition, he said, though I suspect it was mostly so Frank wouldn't pace the kitchen alone all night. I made coffee, sat on the porch. The garden was still in that early morning fog where everything looks like a watercolor someone left out in the rain. The hydrangeas along the fence were fading. Late October does that. But the lavender still held. Lavender always holds longer than you expect. 2 messages on my phone. Frank, ready when you are, kiddo. Tie you straight. I checked 4 times. Marcus, see you at the end of the aisle. I'll be the one who can't stop smiling. I looked at my hands. Calluses on the pads below my index fingers from years of pruning shears. A thin scar on my left thumb from a greenhouse repair gone wrong when I was 17. Soil under the nail of my right ring finger that I must have missed in the shower. These hands built a greenhouse at 14. They planted lavender and hydrangeas. They dug beds for 6 neighbors at $40 each. They signed a business license. Arranged 14 centerpieces for a wedding that my own parents could not be bothered to attend with grace. I finished my coffee, drove to the venue. The barn sat on a hill outside of Millbrook. Open sides, cedar beams, the kind of place that looked like it had been hosting weddings for a century, but was actually a dairy barn until 2016. I had done every flower arrangement myself. Wildflower bundles in copper vases, lavender and Queen Anne's lace and sprigs of rosemary, because my grandmother always said rosemary was for remembrance. The altar was framed with climbing clematis I had trained on a wooden trellis Marcus had built. It smelled like earth and October. Joanna was already in the bridal suite when I arrived, makeup kit open, mimosa in hand. You look like a woman who's been awake since 5. 5:15. Close enough. Sit down. Ruth arrived at 10 with a small velvet box. Inside, a pair of pearl drop earrings. Your grandmother's, she said. She wore these to her own wedding in 1974. Something borrowed and something old, both in one. I held them in my palm. They were warm, as if someone had just taken them off. A knock at the door at 10:45. Joanna opened it. Frank stood in the doorway in his new charcoal suit, white shirt, navy tie Marcus had picked out. His hands hung at his sides, still rough, still scarred from decades of wood and nails and things built for other people. He saw me in my dress and stopped. His eyes filled immediately. His jaw tightened. He blinked twice, hard. Then, "Oh, kiddo." "Don't cry, Frank. I just got my mascara on." "I'm not crying. Sawdust gets everywhere." Joanna laughed from across the room. Ruth smiled. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small wooden box. Walnut, hand-finished. Inside was a boutonniere. Dried oak leaves, baby's breath, wrapped in twine. "Made it this morning. Figured flowers from a store wouldn't feel right for you." I pinned it to his lapel. The oak leaves were from his workshop, same white oak as the bookshelf,
Same wood that had been part of my life for 3 years. "You look beautiful," he said, then corrected himself. "No, you look strong." Nobody had ever said that to me on a day when I was supposed to look beautiful, and it was exactly the right word. At noon, I peeked through the curtain at the side of the barn. I saw the back row. Far right, 3 figures. My father in a dark suit, looking at his shoes. My mother sitting rigid, purse on her lap like a shield. And Vanessa in a dress slightly too formal for an outdoor barn wedding, scanning the room with the expression of someone cataloging exits. They came. For one stupid, reflexive second, my heart said, maybe they're here to make it right. Then I watched my mother lean over and whisper something to my father. He nodded without looking up. They were not here for me. They were here so they could say they were here. Attendance as alibi. I let the curtain fall. Turned back to the room. Joanna adjusting a bouquet. Frank brushing something off his sleeve. Ruth reading Eleanor's letter one more time. I had shown it to her that morning and she had cried quietly for 3 minutes. The coordinator stepped in. 15 minutes.
The music started at 1 o'clock sharp. A string quartet playing something soft and ascending. I don't know the name, but it sounded like sunlight moving through trees. The bridesmaids walked first, Joanna last, pausing at the door to look back at me. Winked, then stepped through. Silence. That brief, held breath kind where 200 people go still at once. I opened the clutch bag, took out Eleanor's letter. Read one line, the last one. The people who show up are your real family. I folded it, put it back, closed the clasp. Frank stepped beside me and offered his arm. His sleeve was crisp, but his hand was the same. Rough, warm, calloused from 40 years of building things for people he loved. I placed my hand on his forearm and felt the steadiness of a man who does not shake. "You good?" "I'm good." "Then let's go show them what showing up looks like." The barn doors swung open. October sun, low and gold, flooded in, catching the dust motes in the air like scattered glitter. 200 heads turned. There we were, Frank Delaney and Della Ingram, a carpenter and a gardener, neither one related by blood, both of us exactly where we were supposed to be. I felt his hand cover mine on his arm, steady, warm, the rough grain of decades pressed against my skin. He took the first step, and I matched it. I didn't look at the back row. I didn't need to. I looked straight ahead. Caught himself, sat back down. My mother grabbed his arm. Vanessa stared straight ahead. Ruth later described her expression as a woman watching a door close that she cannot reopen. We reached the altar. The officiant smiled. "Who gives this woman in marriage?" Frank cleared his throat. He's not a man who speaks to crowds. He builds for them, fixes things for them, shows up for them, but he does not address them. Today he did. Her family does. A pause. Then quieter, like he was saying it to me rather than the room. All of us who showed up. The room exhaled. Ruth sobbed softly from the front row. Joanna's mascara was already gone. Frank turned to me, took both my hands, squeezed once. "Go get married, kiddo." He placed my hand in Marcus's, stepped back, and walked to the front row center seat, the one with his name on it, the seat my father was supposed to fill. Marcus leaned forward and mouthed 2 words to his dad. "Thank you." Frank nodded, folded his hands in his lap. There was sawdust on his right cuff. There was always sawdust on his right cuff. We were married at 1:27 in the afternoon. When it came time for vows,
I said what I had written 2 nights earlier in the workshop, beside the oak bookshelf, on the back of a landscape sketch. I choose you. And I choose the family we build, not the one we were given, the one we make with our hands, every day, from the ground up. The reception filled the barn with music and warmth. People danced. Owen, Vanessa's 3-year-old, chased a balloon between tables. Lily sat on my father's lap asking for cake. At 3 o'clock, Frank stood up for his toast.
I'm going to keep this short because Marcus told me if I talked for more than 2 minutes, he'd play me off with a trombone. Laughter. I don't own a trombone, so I believe him. He held his glass. The first time Della came to my house for Sunday dinner, I had a fern on the windowsill. It was dying. Had been dying for a year. I'd given up on it. She walked in, looked at it, and within 10 minutes, she had repotted it, moved it to a different window, and told me I was overwatering. He looked at me. I knew then. Any woman who saves a dying plant without being asked is also the kind of woman who will save a dying old man from eating alone every Sunday. The room broke open. Applause. Tears. Joanna stood and clapped until her palms were red. My father found me at the dessert table. I felt him step close before I turned. He smelled like the same aftershave he's worn since I was 7. Della. I turned. He was holding a glass of water. Not champagne. Water. His eyes were red at the edges. That man. He gestured vaguely toward where Frank was seated. He did a good job. His name is Frank. Frank. Yes. A pause. He did a good job up there. Silence. My father looked at the cake, at the table, at anything that wasn't my face. I wanted to say I'm sorry. I looked at him, not with anger, not with forgiveness, just the flat, clear gaze of someone who has spent 32 years watching a man choose the path of least resistance. Sorry that you missed it, I said. Or sorry that everyone saw. He flinched. Small. The kind that only happens when someone says out loud what you've been thinking for 3 days. Before he could answer, my mother appeared, hand on his elbow, steering him away. "Don't make a scene, Della," she said, voice low. "I'm not the one making scenes, Mom. I'm cutting cake." She walked away. He followed. He always follows. At 4 o'clock, Frank and I had our dance. Not a father-daughter dance. Just Frank and me on a barn floor, under string lights, to an acoustic cover of Lean on Me that made Joanna cry for the 3rd time. Frank danced carefully, with attention to where his feet were going. He held my hand in his and kept his other hand on my shoulder, because Frank is the kind of man who respects a boundary, even at a wedding. "I step on feet," he warned. "I know," Marcus told me. "That boy has no loyalty." The room laughed. 200 people watching a carpenter dance with a gardener and feeling something true underneath the music. At the corner table, Vanessa watched. Preston was not there. A work trip, she had told my mother, though the chair beside her was empty, and she gripped her champagne flute like it owed her something. Ruth walked over and sat down beside Vanessa. Not hostile, not warm, just present. Eleanor would have been so proud of Della today. A pause. She would have been proud of both of you, Vanessa, if you had let her. Vanessa's eyes filled. She set the glass down, stood, walked to the bathroom. She was in there for 15 minutes. When she came out, her makeup was freshly applied, but her hands were still shaking. I saw her cross the room. I did not go to her. I kept dancing with Frank. Some doors close because you shut them. Others close because the person on the other side stopped holding them open. My parents slipped out around 5, between the cake cutting and the bouquet toss. The way you leave a party you are never really at. The drive home for them was 40 minutes. Neither spoke for the first 20. Then my father said, into the silence of the car and the dark reservoir road running alongside them, "That man built her a bookshelf." My mother looked at him. "What?"
In her workshop. Oak, with her initials carved inside. Silence. When was the last time we built her anything, Donna? No answer. The road gave them too much time to think. She didn't even look at me, my father said as they pulled into the driveway. She walked down that aisle and she didn't look at me once. And she was right not to. My mother went inside. My father sat in the car. The garage light was on. The photo of 12-year-old Della with the tomato was still on the pegboard. The greenhouse was gone. My mother had made him take it down years ago. But the soil marks where it had stood were still faintly visible in the lawn, even in the dark. Some things leave outlines even after they are removed. Monday morning, 2 days after the wedding, I opened the workshop at 7. New order on the desk. A landscape design for the children's wing garden at Millbrook Memorial Hospital. 12,000 square feet. Sensory plants for kids in recovery. Texture gardens. Things you can touch and smell and hold. Marcus brought coffee at 8. Frank came by at 9 with a cherry wood cutting board. Walnut stripe inlaid down the center.
For the newlyweds, he said, as if he hadn't walked me down the aisle 48 hours ago, as if it was just another Saturday. I set it on the counter next to the bookshelf he built 3 years ago. Same man, same hands, same showing up without being asked. My phone buzzed at noon. One text from my father. Can we talk? I read it. Set the phone face down on the drafting table. Opened the hospital garden plans. Started sketching the sensory path. Rosemary for memory. Lavender for calm. Mint for energy. Plants that give you something just by being near them. The greenhouse I built at 14 was 7 feet tall and grew tomatoes for one family. This one would be 12,000 square feet and grow healing for children who needed it. I picked up my pencil, drew the first line of the path, then the second, then the border beds, then the entrance arch. Outside, the October light moved through my workshop window and caught the carved letters on the inside of the bookshelf. D.I. Small enough to miss, deep enough to last. I did not answer the text. I had work to do. 2 weeks after the wedding, Vanessa called. I was on the job site, measuring drainage grates, when her name appeared on my screen. Della. Silence. Long enough that I checked if the call dropped. Preston left. He moved out last week. Took his things while I was at the grocery store. Left a note. I waited. Her voice broke. Not dramatically. Not the performance she uses for my parents. But quietly. Like a crack in a wall that had been spreading for years and finally reached the surface. I thought if I could keep Mom and Dad focused on me, it would fill the gap. Preston wasn't there. The kids weren't enough. I needed to be the center of something, and your wedding was in the way. Your happiness was in the way. I let that sit. Vanessa, I hope you find what you need. I mean that. But I'm not your emotional cushion anymore. I can't be the thing you lean on while you push me down. She cried quietly. I let her. Then I said goodbye and went back to measuring. A letter arrived the following week. Handwritten. My father's handwriting. Small, tilted. The penmanship of a man who learned to write in a school that still used fountain pens. Not a text. Not a call. A letter with a stamp. Postmarked Millbrook. I opened it in the workshop, alone, standing next to the bookshelf. Della,
I should have walked you down that aisle. I knew it when Vanessa asked me not to. I knew it when your mother told me it would be fine. And I knew it when I sat in the back row and watched another man do what I was supposed to do. I chose wrong. I have been choosing wrong your whole life and telling myself it was easier. It wasn't easier. It was cowardly. I let your sister use those children as a wall between us. I let your mother tell me that keeping the peace was the same as being a good father. It wasn't. Keeping the peace meant keeping you at a distance. And I did it because I was afraid of what would happen if I pushed back. Frank earned what I threw away. He showed up.
I didn't. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't think I would forgive me either. But I want you to know that the photo of you holding that tomato is still on my wall. And I wish I had told you then what I should have said 1,000 times since. I am proud of you, Della. I always was. I was just too weak to say it out loud. Dad. I read it twice, folded it, placed it in the desk drawer next to Eleanor's letter. 2 letters, 2 very different weights. I did not reply. I used to think family was the people you were born to, the ones who shared your blood, your name, your dinner table. I don't think that anymore. Family is the man who drives 40 minutes to your workshop on a Saturday to fix a hinge you didn't ask him to fix. Family is a letter in a yellowed envelope from a woman who has been gone 11 years. Family is who shows up. The barn doors opened on a Saturday in October, and the answer was standing right beside me. Rough hands, sawdust on his cuff, a boutonniere made from oak leaves at 6 in the morning because flowers from a store wouldn't feel right. Frank Delaney was not my father by blood. He was my father by choice. And on the day it mattered most, he was the one who showed up.